Hey, Chef here. I recently got asked about hard to train employees. I started thinking about it and I realized that a lot of people are not prepared to handle certain types of employees. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with them or their training methods. It really depends. It really depends on the employee because sometimes they just don't have the passion. They're not there because they're passionate about cooking or food or anything like that. Subconsciously, I think we know that there are people that work in food service, and they don't do it because they're passionate. They do it because they want a paycheck. But we like to assume the best out of everybody, and we like to assume that most of them at least want to try and do a good job, but that's not always the case. And this is true for every generation, not just like, oh, Gen Z is lazy or whatever. Everybody does it. There's people that I've trained that claimed to have had 20 years of experience in food service, and they can't hang on the line, and they end up walking out or whatever. They're probably lying. Just because somebody's initially hard to train, and it seems like they're not getting anything, they seem like they're not getting anywhere. I typically wait when I'm training somebody. I typically wait to make an evaluation on how good they are, how much they've learned, for about 2 to 3 months. And it's not to say that they aren't trained enough after even 2 weeks, but I wait 2 to 3 months to see how they adapt on the line and how they learn new skills. I ask certain questions to kind of gauge how they, are coming along with their knowledge. I might randomly ask them to make a certain item. If I notice that they're having trouble with something like chopping or dicing or whatever, and I demo it and I, get them trained up on it, I might have them demo it back to me at some point, and I see if they can handle the pressure, honestly, just handle the pressure of the cook line. What I noticed with these hard to train employees is initially you think like, oh man, this person is doing great. Like they're flying through everything. Like, I feel like I barely have to train them at all. They're so good, like they learned most of what they needed to learn, and, they come in on time, and, I think we found a really good hire. And then and tell me in the comments if this has happened to you. After about 2 weeks or so, you start to notice that they plateau and they stop learning, and then they start coming in late, and they start having to relearn the things that they learned 2 weeks ago. And they start to kind of become bad and burn things, and I don't know what that is. And it's really weird to me because I understand plateauing and having struggles, because you can come up with a game plan for that. Be like, okay, so I notice these are the areas where you're struggling, so we're going to come up with a game plan to train you up, start learning more advanced stuff, blah blah blah. But when they backslide, sometimes it can be a bunch of different things. I don't like to rush to judgment from anybody. There's a lot of things that it could be. For example, they could have some family issues. If it's a younger cook, maybe they still live with their parents and they're having a lot of fights at home. If they're older, maybe there's something going on with the kids or with the wife or, with the husband, or maybe there's maybe they got some bad medical news and they start dealing with shit in their head, even if it's justified, somebody was in a car accident, whatever it is. They can't keep their head in the game, and then they end up struggling on the line. And you gotta know when to hold people accountable for their laziness and their lack of trying, and when to have understanding of somebody that is going through a lot and just needs some time. People get really deep when bad things happen, and one of the things that'll happen is they're like, so if something bad happens to a family member, they might be going through a phase where they're like, is my job really that important? Like in the grand scheme of things, like, does it really matter if I'm doing this? At the end of the day, there are methods that you can use in order to help improve their overall performance. You can make a game plan. You can see where they're struggling, break it down into sections. If you have them on salad and they can't even do salads, and it's been months, and you are doing everything that you can to train them, and they just can't handle it. Like sometimes, I'm just gonna be honest. Sometimes people are just bad at their job. Like they just suck, and you gotta cut line. And it sucks to do it. It can be painful, especially if they're a very nice person. There was a really nice old lady back when I was working up at I was working for a grocery chain, and they had a restaurant kind of attached to the grocery chain. And in the restaurant, somebody came and they applied to cook. We hired them. Cooking just wasn't for them. I'll just put it that way. We ended up having to transfer them to a different department. Some people are just incredibly slow. There's so many different things. Make a game plan, come up with a game plan, observe what they're doing, write it down somewhere, type it in your phone, in your notes, or on a notepad or something like that, and try to break down specifically what it is, instead of just being like, oh, well, they're just not learning. What are they not learning? What is the problem? Like, really try to focus and nail down what the problem is and look at it at a granular level, then try to break those things down. If they're having trouble on grill, what is it about grill? Are they misreading tickets a lot? Are they being disorganized? Are they overcooking things too much? Like, there's usually something that they're doing that you can point to that indicates why they're bad. And you can train it out of them in most cases. And like I said, sometimes people are just bad and they just don't learn. And if you keep showing them everything and you're doing it correctly and they're not learning, move them into dish, get rid of them, do something else with them. You can't help everybody. Probably get into this on a more granular level. I'm actually going to be late for work if I keep recording. So you guys have an awesome day, and I'll see you on the next one.